Hi, everyone. This is Caroline again with you. And I've been thinking a lot about a lot of these single women that might be wanting to leave the US and travel. And I know this is something that's really, really difficult when you have children, especially when they're young. And so many pioneering women have gone out there and done this with so much flair and I wanted to have you. I wanted to chat with someone who I think is just the epitome of single mom wowness. And so we're going to talk with Kimberly Miles. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me for a little chat. And I know I gave you all these accolades, but you deserve it.
Yeah.
First of all, where are you living right now?
I am currently in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco.
In Mexico.
That's right, in Mexico, West Coast.
And I have other, I admin some Facebook groups, and a lot of people are just, coming down to Mexico. What brought you here?
Well, for me, initially, I wanted the opportunity to move abroad to a place where Spanish was the main language. I've been wanting to learn the language for some time myself, and having a son who's part of, his dad's side of the family speaks Spanish, it was very important for me to expose him to the language. I chose Mexico in particular because as a single mom, I had done my research in groups, and I learned that, there is such a very large single mom community here in Mexico, which took me by surprise. I mean, I knew that there were a lot of families who moved abroad here, but there is a large single mom community here in Mexico and all over the country. And so between that, I mean, it's like I knew I had that support system, or that I would have that support system when I moved abroad. But then additionally, as someone who had never lived abroad before, it was a easy transition because, it's an easy flight from the United States. There are a lot of places in Mexico that if you don't know the language, and, I moved here with a very, I want to say beginner level Spanish, as someone who didn't know the language or doesn't know the language, it's an easy transition. You can find a place here that's comfortable for you to pick up the language or find other English speakers. It's just not like dropping yourself into something, an environment that is completely unknown to you, unless that's your choice. And then additionally, as someone who had solo here more in the previous year, I already started to kind of build a community. I started to meet other friends who were here, local, Mexicans. And so I felt a little bit more comfortable moving or choosing Mexico as my destination just because of their, the previous factors.
And you have a son. How old is he?
He's 7 now. He just turned 7 a couple months ago.
He's 7. So how was the transition for him? I think a lot of women are concerned about that. Will their children be able to adapt to the culture? What was it like for him?
Well, to be honest, and I'll say a couple of things about that. To be honest, the transition was a lot more difficult than I thought it was. A lot of people say, move while they're young. And I still do very much believe we left at a good time while he was young, as opposed to, an older child, people who have teenagers, children who have their own lives established already, or starting to establish their lives and their identity, and then having to pick that up and move to another country where they don't know the language. It's difficult. But even, with younger kids, it's difficult. Depending on their personality. My son is the type who gets very attached to certain areas, certain ways of living, certain things. And so for him, when we moved and he realized that this wasn't just a vacation, he was like, wait a minute now, like, this is it, like, and it was a hard transition for him to move to a place where I mean, in Puerto Vallarta is pretty modern, but there are pretty still significant differences from where we're from in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of the DC metropolitan area. So things are a lot more modern, a lot more fancy. Not saying I come from a fancy lifestyle at all, but there's still like a big difference here in the way that things look and the culture and the speed of things that to him was a bit of a shock. And so, when we first moved abroad here, he was 4 years old when we moved. He was not very happy. He was angry. It was hot outside. He didn't understand the language. Fortunately, here in Mexico, kids are very friendly. They're very open and welcoming. So that kind of made my son feel better, even if they don't speak the same language. But for my son, it took time. It took me getting him enrolled into a local school and starting to meet other parents and really interacting with them before he started to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I like it here. But yes, it was a transition. And I tell other parents that if you are planning to do this with children, make sure you start to build a community ahead of time, like as far early as you can. Join groups and stuff where people have kids, whether they speak English or another language. But start building that community so it makes it a little bit easier for your children as well as for you when you reach your destination.
Now, do you homeschool him?
No, he's in traditional school.
Okay. And how does he like that? It's all Spanish, I'm assuming, or do they have bilingual?
No, my son's actually in a bilingual private school, so he does half the day in English and half the day in Spanish. And
Wow.
I had considered putting him in a full-on Spanish school, but then seeing how he transitioned when we got here, I had to kind of, shift my plans for him because I knew that it would just make it a little bit more difficult for him. So the school that he's in is great because again, he has one full half of the day in all English, one half of the day in all Spanish. And it's the same now with distance learning with COVID and so on. They follow the same format. So it helps a lot for him. He's looked up to a lot by the Spanish speaking kids who don't know English. And, so they have that opportunity to really help each other. And I think that really helps him a lot because he sees, oh my gosh, they need me and they can help me. It really helped a lot with that community feeling for him, building that sense of comfort.
One of the biggest issues that single women, single moms have is, and single women, all of us have, is work. How do you manage that? What are some of the things that you would suggest for someone that, because clearly going to many countries, you're not allowed to work. What do we do?
Right. Well, for me, I think that's it really, it was difficult for me. I chose to create my own business abroad, and that's what allows me to work. It allows me to have that flexibility. In fact, the entire reason I moved abroad was to create my business and to have the flexibility to be able to be there with my son while still making an income. However, it is a topic that's very hard for a lot of single moms because you can't really, it's one thing to get a work visa and, try to work in the country that you're in. But then if you do that, you have to think about, okay, the hours are different. The type of work you do here is different. The income is completely different. And as a single mom, we come here to make life easier for us most of the time. We do it because it's a much lower cost of living. It's easier to live off of a little. But if you come here to work off of, for example, a Mexican salary, then you find yourself in the same boat. It's very difficult. So I always suggest to people, when moving abroad, try to do something that you're still making income from your home country, whether it's creating your own business or working for a company that's online based, teaching online for, teaching English online, or, working with your current employer to allow you to work remotely. And, the next difficult thing after that, again, is the time, as a single mom, it's hard to build your time around that because especially now where we're forced to school our kids at home because of the pandemic, it's a hard balance. And it's really difficult to maintain that balance between work and between family time and just overall being happy. And so I always try to tell people when you build your own business, that's what you choose to do, it gives you that flexibility. Or if not, also something that I have utilized is, because the cost of living is so much lower, being able to hire somebody locally to come and assist. And that, it's something that a lot of us can't do living in our home country. I know for sure I can never hire someone to come in during the day while I work to take care of my son. But living abroad and here in Mexico has really allowed me to be able to afford those kinds of things. So I take advantage of that so that I can continue to work.
For women that had really good jobs and they weren't able to transition with that job, and they're going to be starting out remotely, do you feel that there is a budget, a necessary budget that women need as a single mom, in order to make ends meet, to make a stress-free lifestyle living abroad, say in Mexico? I mean, do you have to make a certain amount of money?
Well, that's another question that, I get often, and I find that it's very difficult to answer because here in Mexico, for one, there are so many different places that you can live. So there's like a huge spectrum of living costs here. So it's hard to tell people you need to budget for this amount. So instead, what I tell people is, first of all, find where it is that you want to go. And then think about what is required where you want to live. What are your needs? What are your wants? What do you really find necessary when moving abroad versus what is something that you are accustomed to, feel that you need, but you really don't. I tell single moms coming here all the time, like, it can be very difficult trying to manage a budget. I mean, you definitely, number one, you want to make sure you are able to spend money for a roof over your head, number one, to put food on your table and to take care of your utilities so that you have lights on, or, well, I won't say the internet's important, or maybe it is if you're working online, but, make sure that you have the necessities to keep yourself alive and to keep your income coming in. After that, then start thinking about the other stuff, because it's very easy to stray away from your budget and spend just as badly as you were in the States, assuming that, you were spending badly. And I always tell people, they're like, oh, the cost of living is so much lower. I can get this big house. I'm like, but do you need the big house? Because what's going to happen is if you weren't spending smart in the States or wherever you're from, you're not going to spend smart here. So if you spend with that same mentality as, oh my gosh, I have more money, that means I can get more things, instead of let me just spend what I need, you're going to find yourself in a hole all over again. And as a single mom, you don't want to be in that position because you have no one else to fall back on. So it's very important just to really focus on what your needs are and to think like a local, because trust me, they're spending on their needs. They're not spending on, oh my gosh, let me make it rain because I have extra money in my pocket. Like, you really have to be mindful of that.
I agree. I know myself here and living in Mexico, it is super, super affordable. But you're right. You have to be careful because it is so affordable. You could really just overspend. I mean, I go to the supermarket, I'm like, okay, I'll take this, I'll take that, I'll take this, I'll take that. And before you know it, you're way over your budget just because your money goes further, but you wind up buying more things.
Yeah, that was like my biggest mistake the first year here. It's like, oh my gosh, extra money. Let me take Uber everywhere. Let me tip because, oh, it's just $5. And, you think about that. $5 is what, 100 pesos roughly, which is a pretty high tip if you're just eating a couple of tacos at a taco stand. Like you've just bought this whole family dinner for the week if they spend it, at a taco stand. So you have to be mindful of those kind of things, and it adds up so quickly. So it's like,
sure. It does. What is it like in Puerto Vallarta, PV, like they call it here? What is life like there on a day-to-day basis? Are there other single moms in locally that you associate with, that you collaborate with? What is life like there?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to really fill out the single moms community here in Vallarta. I have a group in Facebook called Single Moms in Mexico, where I know that, we're starting to learn more about each other and meet each other. But here in Vallarta, I know that there are a lot of moms here, according to other single moms, but I have not met them yet. So a lot of the people I connect with, I connect with local moms and, other moms who are part of families. But I know that there are a lot of single moms here, but I'm still working on building that community. And as far as what life is like here on a daily basis, it's pretty laid back. It's pretty relaxing here. There is such a sense of community here. Everyone here is totally friendly. And, people have said before, Vallarta is like one of the most friendliest places in Mexico. And I would have to attest to that. It absolutely is. Everyone's welcoming. Everyone says hello. If you don't know the language, they're willing to at least try to speak to you or try to figure out what you're saying. Or, they're more open they want to talk to you because they want to know the language as well. But, overall, we've had an amazing experience, and it continues to be like that on a daily basis. Like, it honestly feels like home at this point just because of how welcoming and warm everyone is.
Yeah, it does really. Mexico in particular is really a very special place. You can't really describe it. It just feels so comfortable. You can just really slide in here, with precautions like we mentioned, with a budget and not just going crazy. But it's just amazing how comfortable a life you can live here. Lastly, I wanted to ask you about Travel Unapologetically. I know that you do a lot of work out there in cyberspace, helping women and doing your own thing. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I started my blog, Travel Unapologetically, back in late 2017. And I started it after I had, started to really I'd already been traveling as a solo traveler. I'd started to travel as a solo traveler, had my son, and then once he got old enough, I started to kind of branch out and travel with him. And so I noticed that a lot of moms were really starting to notice that I was traveling alone with my son as a single mom, and they were really intrigued by that and began to ask a lot of questions. And they wanted to know answers about how did I do it? How did I get permission? Because, as a single parent, you need travel consent many of the times. And, they had all these questions, and it was one of those things, like, I was always willing to get that information. I get excited talking about those things. I could talk about it for hours if you can't tell my passion talking about it now. And, I just had this urge to write about my experiences. And so that's when, I kind of, you could say that the blog was born at that point, where I just slowly started putting out information about traveling as a single mother, or traveling as a solo traveler, reasons, why people should travel anyway to kind of get these experiences. And it started to grow. As I started to connect with different groups and different people and groups on Facebook, I started promoting my blog, and it became, kind of popular. And unfortunately, I haven't been as up to date with it as I should be, as far as posting and on Facebook and so on. But it's still one of those blogs that I always get, compliments on from other people, like, wow, I really love this post. It really resonated with me. Just really a good source of information for people who want to travel, to help mothers, to help women, just to empower them, to motivate them, to inspire them to be able to travel. And my whole thing was, it's like living life without regrets, fears, or apologies. Because as a single mom, there's so many things, like, there's so many naysayers, people telling us, you're a single mom, or you're a solo traveler, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be going there, your child won't remember anyway, or it's not safe, or, you can't do that, you can't afford it. There's so many things that we're told on a daily basis. And I wanted my blog to really, like, debunk that. Like, why not? Yeah, we kind of can do it. We're here doing it. A lot of us are living abroad, and I'm here living abroad. So I really built it to kind of really empower other women and mothers to, do the same thing.
I'm going to put a link to your blog below in the video, but I also wanted to ask you if you could just share some final thoughts or if there's someone who wanted to reach out, that you've been a motivation, inspiration for them, if they'd like to reach out and touch you, how can they do that?
Sure. So there's a few different ways you can contact me. One is through my Facebook page, Travel Unapologetically. I am on Facebook as well. And, I'm reachable through my individual profile as well, Kimberly Miles. Right now, I don't separate anything. So, I'm there, I'm reachable. If anyone wants to reach out and, just touch base and chat, I'm here for you. I'm here to, talk about my experiences and, offer my advice. But overall, like, I tell other moms or and anyone else who's really inspired, just to go for it. I think the biggest thing that kind of holds us back sometimes from making these decisions is our own mind, our own fears. So it's like, as soon as we put those behind us, as soon as we put those naysayers behind us and keep our mind focused on the goal, then, anything is possible. And, especially single moms, like, we're super strong anyway. We're raising kids on our own. So of course we can go and we can move abroad, as long as you have the right mindset, the right mind frame, surrounding yourself with the right people, building your tribe, building a community, finding that before you move abroad, and keeping a positive mindset. Anything's possible, and you could totally do it as well. So I'm here to chat whenever, you want to, then I'm here.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for those words of advice. And I know that there's a lot of women that are going to be watching, and it's just going to give them hope and a little bit extra motivation. And even though it is tough being a single mom, as you pointed out, it's not impossible to live a fabulous life. No matter what, and I'm sure no matter where you go, you can create an amazing life for yourself and your child. So thank you so much for being you. Thank you for being here, and we hope to talk to you soon. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.